That was sad too, but in a different way.
Already this was uncomfortable, and Stanley decided that as soon as he found a new space he felt safe in, that he would never leave it again in his life. The good old bucket. Just Stanley and the bucket, off on another thrilling adventure together. Coming to a staircase, Stanley and the bucket walked upstairs to the boss's office.
Let's go to the explosion ending now, I guess. Is this where this happens? Yeah. Cool. I wonder if I can get to that ending with the bucket.
Stepping into his manager's office, Stanley was once
Let's see if
again
we can, get some
stunned
patient.
to discover not an indication of any human life. Crushed by the... But Stanley guessed the correct code by sheer luck. Was it that the bucket knew all along? Was the bucket guiding him? Yes, this is certainly the most logical explanation.
Forgot to put in dialogue for that. I did too quick and he didn't care. Alright, cool ending. Wow. Again, it doesn't necessarily completely change every ending. It's nothing like, it's just new dialogue and new things to think about, which is always great. Always welcome. So,
Stanley and the bucket walked straight ahead through the large door that read, Mind Control Facility.
Control. Oh, I wonder if I could do the escape ending, or where we die. Let's do it.
Although this passageway had the word escape written on it, the truth was that at the end of this hall, Stanley and the bucket would both meet a violent death. The door behind them was not shut. Stanley and the bucket still had every opportunity to turn around and get back on track.
We got this, bucket.
At this point, Stanley and the bucket were knowingly walking forward into a very painful death for each of them.
For each of them? It's okay, bucket. We'll be okay. In the last time we did this ending, we died, yes. But now that I have the bucket, something different will happen. Oh.
As the machine whirred into motion and Stanley and the bucket inched closer to their demise, Stanley reflected on how meaningless the bucket's warmth and comfort had turned out to be. To be sure, it puts the mind and the soul at ease to embrace the bucket, but what use is a sense of ease when you're about to be crushed to death? This is what Stanley thought to himself, and he sort of kicked himself for wasting so much time carrying a bucket everywhere. Farewell, Stanley.
No.
Farewell, Stanley, cried the narrator, as Stanley and the bucket were led helplessly into the enormous metal jaws. In a single visceral instant, the bucket's life came to an end, as it was crushed violently to death.
The bucket? Not me?
It was a shame, the death of such a magnificent bucket. It's true that all buckets are radiant in their own way, but this one stood above the rest. It was a glorious bucket to behold.
The bucket welcomes you to the grand exhibit. You're standing at the precipice of knowledge. Much like a bucket itself, the human mind is frequently empty within a cavernous void, but through use of the exhibit in front of you, the mind becomes full and enriched and substantiated. Knowledge of the bucket and its history is the only true knowledge we really have. Will you take what you learn out here with you out into the world? Will you accept with an open mind what may be challenging about the information in this exhibit? Will you change the lives of yourself and your loved ones as a result of this exhibit? Or will you turn a blind eye and continue to live as you were in the ignorance of darkness and darkness? The lonely chair.
Can you see how arrogant it was for Stanley to take a bucket like this and to claim it for his own? Can you see the hubris that blinded him? Can you see that the bucket is far more noble than Stanley will ever be in his short life?
Oh. All these buckets. 25 buckets. A photograph of 25 buckets. The greatest number of buckets ever captured on camera. The photographer experienced a catatonic shock for several weeks as a result of the euphoria from exposure to this many buckets at once. That's way more than 25 buckets. A bucket with 2 handles. This bucket is depicted as having 2 handles. Such a design has never been created in real life. Having been deemed too dangerous and recklessly experimental, every year, dozens are put to death for just attempting it. What in the world is also... Oh my god. Look at this bucket. Inferno bucket. A replica of the Inferno bucket, which is in the medieval era, was so powerfully alluring that it drove dozens of nations to war with one another for control of it. Billions died, and yet in spite of it all, the simple fact remains. No one can control a bucket. Cave drawing. While we know that the buckets predate the existence of mankind, we do not know by how long. This cave drawing depicts early man's discovery of the practical uses of the bucket, by which time the bucket had already likely been around for several millennia. Notice in these drawings how the bucket is allowing itself to be used, having judged humanity to be worthy of its treasures. Interesting.
No man can own a bucket, and certainly not a bucket as dazzling to behold as this one. It is man who should kneel before the bucket.
The hanging bucket. This piece symbolizes the necessary relationship between bucket and humanity. However clear our grasp of the bucket may be, there is yet more that is always out of reach. This distance inevitably is for our own good. Alright, I want to go back down and... Sorry, I went in the wrong order, so... The stress bucket analogy. Worrying, negative forecast, negative thinking, lack of reassurance, vulnerability, size and strength of the bucket, coping, strategies, holes. The stress bucket presented without commentary. Presented without comment. Okay, it was just that one thing. I guess we just go into here. Oh, what? Oh!
But there is something we can do. Something we can do together, you and I, that will right this terrible wrong. Let Stanley die. Let him be crushed by the machine. Don't reset the game. Don't give him another opportunity to run off with another beautiful bucket. We can save the world's buckets from their treatment as tools and implements if only we let Stanley die together. The bucket shall take its place as ruler, as leader, as commander of a new world, a new vision.
Yes! That was a cool ending. I wonder what actually...
All of his co-workers were gone. What could it mean? Stanley decided to go to the meeting room. Where are we going today? The bucket asked. Stanley just smiled. Anywhere they went together would be perfectly fine with him.
Oh. Weird.
Stanley clutched the bucket tightly to his chest and entered the door on his left. But Stanley guessed the correct code by sheer luck. Was it that the bucket knew all along? Was the bucket guiding him? Yes, this is certainly the most logical explanation.
I will see you guys at the explosion ending. I'm not used to looking over here now, so... my secondary monitor was over here before. Was over here before, and now it's on this side. So now I'm like, everything on my desk is kind of reversed as to what it was before. So I gotta look this way. It's a little bit more awkward for me.
Stanley and the bucket walked straight ahead through the large door that read, Mind Control Facility.
Alright, we're going here this time.
lights rose on an enormous room packed with television screens. What horrible secret did this place hold? But here was the proof. The heart of the operation. Controls labeled with emotions, happy or sad or content. Walking, eating, working, all of it monitored and commanded from this very place. And as the cold reality of his past began to sink in, Stanley decided that this machinery would never again exert its terrible power over another human life. For he and the bucket would dismantle the controls for good. Two best friends, Stanley and the bucket, up against the world. They high-fived in a really cool way, and the bucket made a sassy comment about taking down the system.
But that's not going to happen this time.
But at the last second, the bucket jumped in and pressed the button to turn on the controls. Stanley gasped in horror. Had this been the bucket's plan all along? To take over the machine and claim the power for itself? How could the bucket have betrayed him like this? Stanley was prepared to throw the bucket away in disgust when suddenly an image appeared upon the enormous screen. Birds. Silly, silly birds. The control buttons became active again.
Bird Earth. Oh, I can't go back in now. Silly bird sequence. This one. Parrots.
Stanley flipped through one video of silly birds after another, and then it dawned on him. This wasn't a mind control facility at all. It was a facility for monitoring and surveilling silly birds all over the world. The mind controls were only a facade to disguise its true intentions. Had the bucket known this all along? Stanley marveled at the metal genius in his hands.
Wow.
The one who had pointed him towards this incredible discovery. Stanley and the bucket never found freedom because they spent the rest of their lives here in this place, flipping through live streams of the
spoonbill.
silliest birds imaginable. Of all the possible paths his
maybe
life
not.
could have taken, this one was surely the best. And Stanley was happy.
I agree. And Stanley was happy. What? No. What? Oh, God. Oh, my brain. Oh, my God. Anyway, that was funny. But I think that's going to be it. Unless I want to do the monitor
I can't
one
wait to
real
tell
quick.
this story to my co-workers, Stanley thought. How amusing they'll find it. Oh, won't we all just laugh and laugh at the time I thought everyone had gone missing? No matter how hard Stanley looked, he couldn't find a trace of his co-workers. A strong bucket, a humble bucket, a committed bucket, a bucket of culture and distinction.
Oh, I can't. Damn. Oh, well. Well, I guess we could try this.
Yes, whispered the bucket into Stanley's ear.
We've done it. We've escaped from that dull office and that pesky narrator. At last, out here in the white void, we are alone. Now, and for the first time, I can reveal to you my true self.
The bucket began to tell Stanley of its life and its history, of the countless wars it witnessed, desecrating the land and lives of untold numbers of innocent humans.
Oh my God.
And the bucket's own complicity therein, of sadness and regret, and the many years it spent dwelling on the actions it might have taken to curb the madness and the decay, if only it had been stronger. Of hope and redemption, and its crusade to uplift the stock of life for the common man, to manifest justice where none existed, and the bittersweet reality of time to see one's dreams and wishes met halfway, meted out in parcels like charity, and abandoned as soon as the warm glow of inspiration begins to dim. The opportunities to do so much more. There was so much it could have done, perhaps, the bucket wondered to itself. Perhaps if it had seen its own darkness with a clearer perception. This was way too much for Stanley.
What are you talking about?
He screamed.
You're a bucket. bucket?
To this, the bucket furrowed its brow.
No,
Said the bucket.
not since the evil wizard Gambhorata first ensnared me in his machinations as payback for the sacred amulet I stole from his treasured vaults. I was young back then and could not conceive the ramifications of... No!
Stanley screamed even louder this time.
This is stupid! You are a bucket! This is so stupid! Why are we even doing this?
As Stanley screamed and screamed and screamed, the bucket revealed its true form, transforming into a mighty beast of untold power, its fangs glistening like... My God, Stanley, you did it. You saved us from the bucket. Thank God you already had all 12 emblems of sages and knew the incantations to summon their true power. Otherwise, we would have easily been overwhelmed by the bucket's power. I'm speechless. You've demonstrated such bravery here today.
What?
Come, let's restart the game, and we'll agree to never again go trifling with this bucket, nor the dark magic cast away inside of it.
What? I just had to do one more ending, didn't I? For today. This and the previous episode have been recorded back to back, and oh my goodness, this is a lot to take in. Jeez. The birds was nice, and then this. Oh my gosh. Alright. That is it for this episode of the Stanley Parable Ultra Deluxe, or Stanley Parable 2, or Stanley Parable 3 Grilled Circles, as now we're calling it, and with that thing. But yeah. Thank you guys so much for watching this episode of the Stanley Parable. If you like what you saw and you want to see more, leave a comment down below letting me know. Leave a like on the video if you liked it, and you can get notifications when I upload next if you hit the bell on my channel. So thanks again everyone so much for watching this episode of the Stanley Parable, and as always, I will see you next time. See ya.